You know that feeling, right? You're in the middle of a great movie and buffering wheel. Or you're on a super important video call and boom, it drops. We have all been there. Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on why that happens by diving into this invisible battlefield that's raging all around us, probably right in your own home.
Now, just so you know, what we're about to break down is actually part 5 of a whole 10-part series. All the info, all the clues we're following today, they come straight from this incredibly detailed report you see here, written by the experts over at RFI Detectives.
Yeah, these are the folks who do the real deep dive detective work on all these invisible forces. Our job is just to break down their findings for you in a way that makes sense. So let's get right to it.
All right, let's set the scene here. We're not just, talking about a tech problem. We're actually solving a mystery, the case of the connection that just vanishes without any warning.
I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? One minute, everything's working perfectly, and the very next, it's totally useless. It feels so random, almost like it's doing it on purpose. But I promise you, there's a perfectly logical explanation behind it all.
So let's look at the clues. Does this list seem familiar? That video stream that just buffers and buffers? The security camera footage that's all choppy? That smart speaker that suddenly acts like it can't hear you? See, these aren't all separate problems. They're actually all symptoms pointing to the exact same cause.
Every good mystery has a location, right? A scene of the crime. And for our Wi-Fi problems, that scene is a totally invisible slice of the airwaves called the 2.4 gigahertz band. So the backstory here is really important. The 2.4 gigahertz band was set up as something called an ISM band. The easiest way to think about it is like a public park for radio waves. It's unlicensed, it's open for anyone and any device to use. But there's a catch. Everyone using it just has to accept that there's going to be interference. And that right there is why the pioneers of Wi-Fi jumped all over it. I mean, it was a brilliant move. The signal could go a long way, it could travel right through walls, and, best of all, it was totally free to use. It was the perfect place to build a wireless revolution. But of course, here's the twist. The very things that made it so awesome, how open and effective it was, are exactly what led to its problems. It basically became a victim of its own success, turning into this unbelievably crowded and noisy digital space. So if it's so crowded, who's actually causing all this digital noise? Well, it's time to identify the suspects, and I think you're going to be really surprised by who's in the lineup.
Just look at this list. It's not just your neighbor's Wi-Fi you're competing with. It's your microwave oven, which operates on almost the exact same frequency. It's every single Bluetooth device, every baby monitor, cordless phones. All of these things are all trying to talk at the same time in that same public park.
Okay, so we've got our suspects. Now we need to figure out their method, their modus operandi. How do all of these different gadgets actually create the kind of traffic jam that slows your internet down to a crawl?
Well, believe it or not, it all comes down to this one single number. 3. That's it. In the entire 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi band that's used here in the States, there are only 3 channels that don't overlap with each other. Just 3.
And this analogy just nails it. Imagine every single Wi-Fi network in your neighborhood, plus all those other gadgets we just listed, all trying to merge onto a highway that only has 3 lanes. It's not a traffic jam, it's total gridlock.
And here's the crucial part about how Wi-Fi tries to manage all this traffic. The system is designed to be polite. It has a listen before you talk rule. So if it hears that a channel is already busy, your device literally just has to wait for its turn. And when you have dozens of networks all crammed onto the same channel, well, there's a whole lot of waiting going on. And if that wasn't enough, there's another major problem. Your router is powerful. Think of it as being able to shout its signal. But your tiny phone or your laptop, it's running on a small battery. It has a tiny antenna. It can only whisper back. So even if your phone can hear the router just fine, the router might not be able to hear your phone's quiet little reply over all that other background noise.
So what's the first thing people do when their connection is bad? They go into their settings and crank up the power on their router, right? But this just creates what the report calls a power arms race. Everybody starts shouting louder, which doesn't clear the traffic jam at all. It just turns it into an even louder, more chaotic mess where nobody can hear anything clearly.
Okay. We've reviewed the scene of the crime, we've identified the suspects, we understand the method. It is now time for the verdict. Let's put all these clues together and finally solve this mystery.
This quote from the RFI Detectives report it's just staggering. In a typical apartment building, your Wi-Fi might be competing with 50 or even 100 other networks. Think about that, all of them fighting for just 3 lanes. That's not a highway anymore, that's a demolition derby.
And there it is. This is the solution to the mystery. Your Wi-Fi isn't broken. Your internet provider probably isn't the problem. Your devices are simply soldiers, fighting for just a little bit of airtime on this invisible, incredibly overcrowded battlefield.
So, the big takeaway here is this. The problem isn't a piece of broken technology, it's a crowded environment. Now that you can actually see the battlefield for what it is, the real question isn't, how do I fix my Wi-Fi? The real question is, how do you negotiate a truce? And we'll get into that in our next explainer. Thanks so much for tuning in.